Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. A really cool review for you guys from the brand VERO Watch Company. A little about them: they were founded on back in 2015 out of Portland, Oregon. And VERO watches are inspired by grit, commitment, and style, making it their mission to inspire life's journeys with rugged, unique field watches. Now, in terms of field watches, some key common characteristics and something when you're looking for something within this genre, of course, you're going to find something that's modest, vintage style sizing, Arabic numerals, normally either a 12 and or a 24-hour scale included over a black or a cream dial. Now, this is their Smokey the Bear, or the Smokey Bear, actually, 80th anniversary edition in the forest green dial. And it is a commemorative timepiece dedicated to the spirit of Smokey, celebrating his 80 years of service, protecting our nation's forests, dating back all the way to August of 1944. Now, 10% of all Smokey Bear watch sales go directly back to the U.S. Forest Service to assist in their continued efforts in protecting our nation's forests and grasslands. You can get this directly from VERO for $550, and I have to say, I'm digging it. It's very niche in terms of course, like, are you a fan of Smokey the Bear and that side of it? Of course, I'm a Marine, so those covers, right? In boot camp, the drill instructors wore they call them Smokey Bears, the old Smokey covers. So there's a little bit of a double incentive for me to really enjoy this, from my old Marine Corps days. And then, of course, as living in Southern California, I know the importance of fire safety and of course all of the threats and dangers that go along with those forest areas if they do go ablaze. So I have an extra appreciation for the theme of this piece. So anyways, happy that VERO reached out to send this piece in for me to share with you all. So big shout out to them. And with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now before we dive in, I figured we had to take a look at this really, really cool commemorative packaging. So Smokey the Bear, very cool, all officially licensed. Nice little facts here, all the info, a little bit on the history. I dig it. So you have this nice little slip, and then inside, also very handsome. Check that out. Nice little pattern there. Almost reminds me of kind of the old school wrapping papers. And the nice thing is they use Velcro, which is cool because, sometimes brands will use magnets, and, magnets aren't the greatest for watches and watch transportation. So we get of course, very cool with all the information on there. The serial number, hopefully nobody steals that. There's that. A couple of great little stickers here. Only you. These are definitely very cool historically. And then a little pin here. And underneath, you're going to find this extra strap, which is cool. And of course, the little dry pack there, keeping everything nice and controlled. So you're going to see this other strap. I'm not too worried about getting this one because I think it really looks best on the leather strap that's also provided, but I do want to show you guys just a bit of the quality. And then in here you're going to have the spring bars so that you can put it on to this strap should you so desire, because the actual leather strap actually comes on quick release spring bars. So very cool. I dig the theme. I really like when brands kind of take it above and beyond in terms of just execution of a theme. In this case, I understand that this is very niche, but I dig it. So let's start with this strap. So you can see here, very cool. You got the little evergreen signature on it. Beautiful color, and you can see that because of the color, as you kind of wear this in, you can get it nice and just a little bit more of a weathered look. Looks very nice and broken in, and you are going to have to break it in because it is quite thick. But aesthetically, very cool, guys. I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. And of course, because of the case material here, which is actually, let me make sure I have this correct, bronze. It's going to be an imperfect case in terms of not the execution. I mean, it's very well done, but in terms of the actual finishing and the way everything looks. So you're going to have matte bead blasted finish, but you're also going to have some high polished accents. But of course, they're all going to age at kind of their own pace. So your own mileage may vary when you do pick one of these up. Now, getting into some of the dimensions: 38.3 millimeters in diameter, 12 millimeters thick, and 46.4 millimeters lug to lug. Now, of course, you're going to have this nice bronze construction, and this is also very interesting that they even did the case back in what I assume is also bronze, because typically I'll see this done in a titanium or something like that. So I'm curious if this is solid or they just kind of coated it to make it match. Either way, I think it looks very nice. And again, you don't always see that because I know some folks kind of worry things may patina. I haven't gotten any stains or anything on this for even wearing and kind of sweating in quite a bit. So you can see that there's a bit of just general patina that's building up on the case, but it's not necessarily building up on my skin, which is nice. So in terms of the crystal, nice flat sapphire there. It does have an inner air coating. You can see it's quite a little smudge action. Let me just give that a quick wipe here. It's a very warm day, so my fingerprints are going to be easy to find on shiny surfaces. Now, getting into this, very, very, very cool. I like that. Of course, yes, there's a bear on the dial, but I will say, it's not too shouty, with this very muted palette, although it is, I think quite vibrant. It's also quite neutral. So having those earth tones of browns and greens and everything like that, I think it all flows together really, really handsomely. In terms of the bezel, you see it's a nice stepped bezel that does have different finishing. You're going to see some matte blast. You're going to see some nice high polish there. And it does add a bit of visual interest to an otherwise, pretty function forward layout, right? There's not a bunch of bevels or anything like that. This is a pretty standardized case, and I think it looks good. And of course, for the type of watch being a field watch, I think it makes sense. Now, the crown does screw down, and it is nicely signed, of course, with that evergreen, insignia there, which I think looks great. And you can see it also even has multiple finishes, whether it be matte, and then also it looks like a little bit of a more polished accent there on the grips. So very, very cool. Now, underneath this very cool etched case back is going to be your Seiko Instruments NH38A. So 41-hour power reserve, beats at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of the beat rate. So you can see there that seconds hand is sweeping nicely along. Not the smoothest, but at 3 hertz, it's good to go. And I will say, for an NH38, the crown action on here did not disappoint. I know that can be a point of contention from time to time with the NH38. For me, I feel like it's pretty hit and miss. Sometimes I get really mushy crown actions out of those. Here, it was not. There was no issues when I was hacking and hand winding the movement. Everything worked out really beautifully. So kudos to VERO for, getting that nicely QC'd. Also, these are US regulated in terms of the timekeeping. So they don't advertise any additional specs, but, the fact that they take the time to regulate them locally, I can absolutely appreciate that. Now, getting into the dial details here, guys, you can see a nice matte textured dial, no date, so a very, very balanced. You're going to see that 12-hour scale with the 24-hour scale, these really cool kind of cathedral hands there. It all just comes together again in a very handsome way that I don't think is over the top. So I can appreciate that. Now, the lume itself is unspecified, but it does glow green, and it is one of the compounds of Swiss Superluminova. But it They unfortunately, from the material, I didn't see specifically which one, but it glows green. So to me, this looks like it's probably C3 formula, especially judging by the kind of day luminescence that this has. It doesn't strike me as like an old iridium, but it maybe could be a mixture as well. Now, interestingly enough, the water resistance on here is actually 120 meters for almost 400 feet, 393 feet of water resistance. And this does have a screw-down crown, so that means it's going to be a confidence-inspiring 120 meters. So nice for them to get the 100 with a screw-down crown and go a little bit further and say, hey, 120 meters. Now, in terms of the lugs here, 20 millimeters. So if you don't like the strap, either of the provided ones, you can always put this on something else very easily. So you're going to see here, non-tapering leather strap with quick release spring bars in this nice light brown colorway. It looks very, very good. And then of course you guys remember the 20 millimeter canvas NATO style strap that was also included. But with that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears really, really nicely. Check that out. Of course, it does have more of a slab side. So even though at 12 millimeters, it's not, extra thick or anything like that, I think visually it's going to have a little bit of visual weight there and maybe a little bit of heftiness that, some people may enjoy in terms of that overbuilt, tooly aesthetic, and some people may, kind of want something a little bit more refined feeling. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the lens here, you're going to get some perspective distortion. It's going to make the watch seem a lot larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame here so you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And check that out. I think this looks fantastic. I mean, the colors all flow together really well. The textures, the finishing, again, just a little play of different tonality on that leather strap, I think go really well. And then to this case, it's not anything crazy or groundbreaking, but it really doesn't have to be within this field watch range. And you can see there, everything contours nicely. It wears quite nice and hugs the wrist really well. So digging the way this one wears, and I think at this angle you can see, it's not going to be a problem in terms of being overly thick or anything like that. Again, it's really going to be that visual weight and not any actual, extra heft, because 12 millimeters is not, while it's not thin, I definitely wouldn't call it thick, especially considering, that you do have that stepped bezel that does add a little bit of height there. And thankfully, they used a very flat crystal, so you're not getting any additional height from that perspective. So I think this looks really good. But with that said, let's actually get it off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, yes. So, a lot of loom, and it's a field watch, so it doesn't necessarily need this much loom. But I have to say, I appreciate that it's here. All right, and I mean, just super legible, guys. You can see there, of course, those bright numerals. Then you also do have some pips that do come around as well. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in on buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. So, check out that dial. I really like the green. I'm not huge into green dials, but this one, I mean, through most of the time, it's going to render essentially as a black dial. And then once the light hits it right, you're going to see that green really come to life, especially considering that nice texturing that you have on there. But you're always going to have this at relatively high contrast versus those numeral scales, whether they be the large 12-hour scale or, the smaller cased 24-hour scale, which looks really good. So even in that transitional, it's pretty much just, again, it's just holding the legibility, and that is definitely a beautiful byproduct of it being within the theme of course, a field watch. So that instant legibility is fantastic. But In terms of closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, this is just simple and well balanced in terms of the way that it wears. The strap may be a touch thick, but there's still plenty of comfort that's there, especially after you start wearing it for a while. You break it in a little bit more. Of course, there is that other black strap, which is going to be thinner, which is going to give you more comfort as well if you do want to go that route. And then thankfully, the 20 millimeter lug width leaves a lot open in terms of aftermarket options to really spice this up even more. In terms of model variants, this is also available in a brilliant blue dial variation. So check the site links for current options and availability, because I'm pretty sure these are, their anniversary editions. I don't know how limited they are, but again, I don't know if anybody could just keep making something that's this niche. If you like it, then you should probably try to find it pretty immediately, because I don't know how long they're going to last. Now, in terms of comparable models, this is absolutely a very specific type of field watch, referencing a very beloved character. So, it's not just as simple as comparing it to any other field watch or any other field bronze watch or military watch, or this I think even crosses into pilot's watch territory in terms of that handset and that larger numeral set. But again, it's not necessarily about the comparables for this one, just because I think it is such a standout in terms of its theme. So for me, guys, bottom line, if this concept resonates with you, I think the watch itself won't disappoint. I personally really enjoy the theme here, and I can appreciate the entire experience, from the commemorative packaging down to the physical on-wrist profile, where I think this just feels like a solid watch, and then you get the bonus of having it also be quite fun. So with that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.